So here's some running backs I'm looking to buy and trade for if your trade deadline wasn't up this season. I know a lot of trade deadlines were over, but I'm still going to do this video anyway just in case your leagues haven't stopped trading yet and your deadline's not up or whatever the case is. But anyway, the first guy is Ezekiel Elliott for the third week or even fourth week in a row. He's on this list for me as Elliott. And the Dallas Cowboys now, they got a little healthier. They're getting Andy Dalton back. At least they got a decent professional quarterback behind the line. Elliott, the last 4 weeks, we've seen him struggle. In week 6, he had 12 fantasy points. Week 7, 6. Week 8, 8.5. And week 9, about 9. But now he was off in week 10. That hamstring was a little tight. He goes to Minnesota now. And Elliott, he has 2 good matchups coming up, Minnesota and Washington. So if you could get your hands on Zeke here, on a discount deal, that is, like I saw last week, someone got him for Melvin Gordon and the Baltimore D. That's the type of deal you're looking to get Zeke on, because the production he's put on the last few weeks, he's not even top 30 some weeks in fantasy points for running backs. So Zeke, 2 good games coming up. I think you could get him on the cheap. I might try to sniff around and get him as well in one league where my trade deadline isn't up, in a keeper league. So go out there and try to get Zeke if you could. The second guy is James Conner. Another down game for Conner. He was on this list last week as well. And I just don't know what it is. Pittsburgh here, they're blowing teams out most weeks. But Conner, they're not even using him to close out the games. It was more of a throwing game for Big Ben and the Steelers. Conner, he had 13 carries for 36 yards and only 2 catches for 12 yards, ending the day with 6.8 fantasy points, which is not good at all. Week 9, like I said, versus Dallas, they barely used him. And now week 11, he's got a great matchup versus Jacksonville. But Conner, his value's down. I think he's going to bounce back. Pittsburgh, they're 9-0 now. So I think they're going to run the ball more. They got all the weapons, Juju, Ebron, Claypool, Deontay Johnson. So yeah, Pittsburgh, they got to get back to the running game. Ben, how many more hits is he going to take? He's been banged up with the bad knees. And Conner, he was bottled up in this game. I'm admitting it. But he's a guy, you can maybe get him cheap if you're still trading in your leagues. His value 3-4 weeks ago was sky high. But Conner now, he hasn't cracked 20 fantasy points since week 3. So he's on the decline. The last 4 weeks, his points have gone down as Conner. But he's a guy I still want to get before the playoff run. He's got a good playoff schedule as Conner. Buffalo, Cincinnati, but Indy will be tough. But besides that, if you could get this guy with a decent playoff schedule after 2 bad games and his value's a little low, you go out there and get him. The next guy is another guy who hasn't played actually in a few weeks, is Joe Mixon at the Cincinnati Bengals. Mixon, I thought he was going to come back after the bye week in week 9, but once again he was out in week 10 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now he's got Washington and the Giants. 2 good matchups coming up if he can make it on the field. I know I have Mixon in one league, and I need him to come back badly. And then he's got a great fantasy schedule for the most part. He's got Dallas, Pittsburgh, and Houston in weeks 14 to 16. Owners, they might be frustrated. They might be 5-5, 4-6 right now, trying to make a run, and they got Mixon, and they can't wait any longer to wait on him to come back. So this is the last week you could finally get Mixon maybe before he comes back and puts up the numbers that he puts up. Mixon, he's had a good fantasy year for the most part. The first 2 out of 3 weeks he was slow, but Mixon, you know, he's going to get a lot of volume, a lot of carries, a decent pass catcher out of the backfield. And the Bengals need him bad. Joe Burrow, he took a beating last game, so he needs that big physical running back in the backfield for him. So go out there and try to get Mixon. The next guy, another guy coming off injury, and the rumors are week 12 he's going to come back, is Austin Ekeler. He even said last week to fantasy owners, the time draws near. So he tweeted that on Thursday. Ekeler, 1 more week it looks like, or 2 he'll be out. Kellen Ballage, he's been a good fill-in for Ekeler. Ekeler, he's out this week in a dream matchup versus the Jets. Buffalo, possibly he'll come back. If not, he'll be back for the fantasy playoffs where he has great matchups versus Atlanta, Vegas, and Denver. You know, the Chargers, they're going to be trailing in a lot of ball games, and he's going to get a lot of catches out of the backfield. And if you're in the hunt and you're comfortable in second or third place now, and you need a running back at the end of the year. Austin Ekeler, I think you could get him cheap, especially if a manager who's trying to make the playoffs and he's on the fringe in 8th or ninth place and needs a running back, and he'll give you Ekeler on the cheap a little just to get a piece in there now. This is the time to make that type of deal. So Austin Ekeler, if I could get him on a good discount and I'm in the hunt and I know I'm going to have a playoff spot, you go out there and get him. And the fifth and final guy, another guy who's been injured now for 3 weeks, is Chris Carson. The reports aren't that good right now that he's going to play this week. On Sunday, they said he's expected to play, and then in practice, he was limited. The time's ticking on Chris Carson to come back this week. The game's already Thursday night in 2 nights. So Carson, I think you could get him pretty cheap. He was putting up huge fantasy days before the injury versus Arizona on that Sunday night a few weeks ago in Week 7. So Carson now, he's been out 3 weeks. You know, Seattle needs him bad. They've lost 3 out of 4 games since he went down in the middle of that ball game, and they now in a big division matchup versus Arizona. He's got the foot sprain. I think he's going to come back this week or next. One of these weeks, we're going to see Carson back, and he's got a good schedule the next few weeks. Week 13, the Giants, 14, the Jets, 15, Washington, and if you make the championship, the Rams in Week 16. So he's got a good closeout schedule. If a manager's frustrated and he can't wait the week or 2 more for Carson, this is the time to go out and get him, because he's a top 10 running back easily. When he comes back into a top offense like Seattle, you know he's going to get most of the work. People think Penny or Carlos Hyde's going to eat into his workload. I don't think so. Seattle desperately needs him. They've been running guys like DJ Dallas and Alex Collins out there, so go try and get Carson. So that's 5 running backs I'm looking to trade for and buy heading into Week 11.